Bungalow Bill here, and welcome back to From the Depths. That was a quick demonstration of the new nuke in the alpha test branch. Now, I have not developed this nuke. All that I've done is put one block in place, which is the AI breadboard. As this is currently in the alpha test branch, there are a few issues with it because there were some modifications made to the breadboard after I submitted it. In particular, there was another flight floor that causes some issues. I think it was supposed to help stop the nuke from going into the water. Doesn't really do that. Makes it have issues hitting ships properly. For the first time demonstrating here, that's been gotten rid of. There's also a proximity fuse, which I think is supposed to be disabled, but still seems to trigger sometimes. I made a few modifications for that here. Still has a few issues. I think the control block thing doesn't always actually trigger the nuke. You might see it detonate sometimes and not others based on the proximity fuse. Other than that, pretty much the PN guidance that you've seen before. As for the nuke itself, uses a spin block with a nuke on it for roll, has a few ACBs to detonate the nuke. One is for use from the breadboard, the other one for when the nuke takes damage, you're supposed to set the nuke off. That's a little flaky. I think there's some issues with that now. Not an issue with the craft. I think it's an issue with the game. Has some engines, which I have them slightly modified here so that the top and bottom are the same length as the sides. For the original one, when I was tuning the breadboard, I did not realize that there were different lengths, and it doesn't have separate gains for yaw and pitch, which makes it a little bit suboptimal, but it's still okay. Here I made them the same lengths, and just with a one gain, it's a little bit better at hitting things than it is on the alpha test branch. For how it turns, it does it purely by thrust vectoring and purely by throttling back the engines. Basically, given how fast this thing turns, as I demonstrated earlier just by having it spin in the circle, it can't wait for slower things to happen, like pitch and yaw to change on the thrust vector based on the extra configuration. It can't wait for spin blocks to move. It can't wait for the new air rudders to move. It has to do things that are instantaneous, which means either throttling the engines up and down or the old aileron style blocks, but that adds a lot of volume on to get enough of those, so it's way, way better for this type of application to just use this throttling, even though it's not really that cost effective because you're just not using all of your engines all the time, but it's not bad. For some slower vehicles that don't need to be as responsive, you can do it other ways, but this is the only one that really seemed viable for this type of craft. With that out of the way, I'll spawn in a deep water guard vehicle and demonstrate the type of flight path it takes. There are a few concessions to the flight path because it needs to be able to hit a variety of different vehicles, interceptors, airships, ships, all that sort of stuff. So works better against some things than others, but still does work for everything. Spawn in the enemy, turn off its weapons because it has a flak cannon that's actually really good at shooting down nukes. So we climb to about 400 meters while wobbling a bit. Makes it hard to hit from far away, but once it starts this dive, the highly responsive flak cannon on the Pilfer would start to hit it. Comes almost straight down, detonates. Nukes are a little hit and miss sometimes. Reasonable damage here, I think, although probably not worth the cost of the vehicle in this case. Because of HE falloff being very aggressive, I do kind of find that hitting vehicles that sort of have a lot of not useful blocks, just wooden volume, maybe not cost effective, but still a fun thing to do. This is the new Enigma swarm. To my eye, the little drones look the same, although it's possible that they aren't. I never took a close look at them before, but the mothership is different, and I think this edition of the mothership looks fantastic, especially compared to the old one. Perhaps there could be a few tweaks, but it looks pretty good, definitely a lot better than I would do. It spawned in here because it's one of my favorite targets for ramming vehicles, particularly because of how small and, frankly, annoying the drones are. So I'll unpause the game. It's possible the nukes will take hits, but it's very unlikely. Targets are going to be pretty random, although I think it's based on spawn order, maybe. I don't really know. They're all going to go for the same ship, so they're going to detonate each other a little bit. I could make room for a target prioritization card on these nukes. The person who put them into the alpha test branch, who actually built the thing, didn't put one on, and even though I thought they kind of needed one, I didn't really change the actual structure of the nuke. I did a few things related to its flight characteristics so that I could make the breadboard work better, but for the rest of it, I left it exactly the same. So, anyway, that's all I have for this video. I hope you all enjoyed watching, and I hope to see you in the future.